Let's work on our math together. This is page 219 to 220. We're going to be doing more three-digit subtraction. Why don't you get your worksheet out now, and we'll go over several of the problems together that are going to be right there on your worksheet, okay? We're going to do subtraction. We're going to rename if needed. Sometimes we'll have to rename and sometimes we won't, okay? But we will always start in the ones column. Let's look at number 1. Here, the first problem on your homework sheet, 219 to 220, okay? 650 minus 448. So right away we see 0 minus 8, and we know you can't take 8 away from 0. So we're going to need to go to the tens place to rename, all right? So we'll mark out this. If we take 1 away from it, we'll put that 1 right here. This is 4 now, okay? Now 10 minus 8 is 2. And 4 minus 4 is 0. And 6 minus 4 is 2. So you have your answer to number 1, 202. Okay? Let's look at number 2. I hope this is becoming more and more smooth and familiar to you as we practice it more and more times together. I'm proud of all your hard work on this concept, right? Let's look at number 2. It says 705 minus 395, right? So we'll start in the ones column. 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 minus 9. Now be sure you're paying attention because it could be easy to look at that and just go, oh, it's just 9 because take away nothing from 9. But that's not the problem. The problem says 0 minus 9, which is not possible. So we'll go to the hundreds place to rename. Take 1 from there and put it right there. Now it's 10 minus 9 equals 1. And 6 minus 3 equals 3. And your answer is 310, right? So you'll have a few more chances to do that on your worksheet. And then you have a word problem, number 5. Let's look at it together, okay? I'll read it out loud to you. Juan counted the coins from his grandfather's coin jar. There were 630 coins. There were 325 nickels, dimes, and quarters. The remaining coins were pennies. How many pennies were there? All right, and then on your worksheet, they give you an empty spot to draw a picture. Now, because this word problem is mentioning coins and quarters and pennies and all of those, you might start thinking, oh, should I be drawing coins to figure out the answer? But that's not what you should do, okay? If you would like to draw a picture to solve this, you should draw it with the 100 squares and the tens. You should just draw it like this, okay? And if solving it this way is helpful to you, you can with the picture. It doesn't assign you to, sometimes it says picture the problem. At that point, you have to do it. This time, it just gives you the option of it. But using the information from the word problem, it starts with 630. There's 630 coins all together. This is what this is a picture of. 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 610, 620, 630. There are 630 coins altogether. 325 of them are nickels, dimes, and quarters. 325. Everything left is pennies, and the question is, how many pennies were there? So we'll subtract this from the bigger number, all right? So if we were going to do that over here, we would have to take one of these, because you can't take 5 away from it unless you turn it into ones. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? And then taking away 325 would be, take out 5 ones, 20. That means take out 2 tens and how many hundreds? You do that to find your answer. If you're going to do it this way, then you line up all your numbers starting in the ones column. You can't take 5 out of 0, so you'll go next door. Okay, 10 minus 5 is 5. 2 minus 2 is 0, and 6 minus 3 is 3. 305 of the coins were pennies, right? So I wanted you to pay attention to that. When you first read the word problem, it might sound a little tricky, but you don't need to draw pennies and nickels and dimes. You're just using these numbers to find your answer, all right? Yeah, the next one is also, it's the same. It mentions coins, but you're not needing to draw coins. You're needing, if you're going to draw it, draw the blocks, the hundreds, tens, and ones, all right? The back of it is more examples of solving these, renaming if needed, and I think you're going to do great. Hello, second grade. We're going to turn to our next portion of our history learning. We've been learning about the colonies for a while, the very first colonies, the colonies that were established by people looking for religious freedom, the colonies established by people looking for just new opportunities, the middle colonies, which were settled by people from all different places in the world. So they had a real mixture of cultures coming in. And we've been learning about the southern colonies. Now, life in the southern colonies was very difficult. The climate and the area there was a lot of sickness, and it was a hard place to make a life and make a living. But the main way to make a living in the southern colonies became farming. And this actually opens up a really tragic, shameful part of American history, because what people decided is to make the southern colonies work, they needed crops, they needed to be able to farm, and they needed to have crops that they could turn into money. And they actually began to have slaves. So, all countries have parts of their history that aren't good. And this is one of the most dark parts of America's history, that people decided that, well, we need lots of workers, and if we bring people who are kidnapped from another country and we don't have to pay them and they don't have any rights and they can just work, then we can make these farms have the crops. People decided that they were okay with that. And I think that is such a sad part of our history. It's a difficult thing to learn about. It's definitely 100% not something God was okay with. God created the whole world. All people are made in his image. No one should be deciding, well, this person's different enough, I don't think they matter as much. That's a really wrong way of thinking that people used back then. The same way there were people who, when they first came into America, they thought, oh, well, the Native Americans who are here already, they're so different than us. I think they're not as important. We can just come in and make this our own land. That same thinking came in when people thought, well, the people that were kidnapping and bringing from West Africa, they're not as important. It's fine if we treat them that way. So I'm sorry to say that this is our history reading. Sometimes when we read history and we study history, it's really sad and it's really hard. Okay, so we have some textbook pages about that point in history. And one thing I think is really interesting is that even in really dark, difficult times, sometimes beautiful things happen. Sometimes God brings beautiful things out of sad, hard times. And one thing that's interesting in this history of people who were brought from a part of Africa to be slaves in America is there were things that they did to make their life that was very, very difficult they still had art. They wove baskets and had interesting kinds of art. They brought interesting recipes and traditions from their own cultures that they brought with them and introduced. And they also made music. And a lot of their songs and the music that they made, some of it is still sung today. Some of the lyrics are really beautiful, and the sound of the music is really beautiful, and it brought people then comfort and encouragement, and there are some of those songs that we still sing today. So after you do your textbook reading, I want you to go to Teams. I'm going to put links on there for you to be able to listen to a song that was written during that time, during the time of slavery in the southern states, okay? And this person who's singing it, it's interesting because the recording that I'm going to link, it was recorded in the 30s, but she herself learned the songs from people in her own family way back who were enslaver themselves. So it's something, some version of something beautiful being brought out of something really dark. And I think the song's beautiful, and I hope you enjoy listening to it. So your assignment is read your textbook through page 148 and then listen to the songs that I will post on Teams. So we've been learning about adjectives in English for a while, and we've learned about all different kinds of adjectives. We're coming to the close of this chapter on adjectives. So we're going to do some practice today. We'll do a whole chapter review tomorrow, and then by Friday we'll be ready for our end of chapter quiz, all right? So let's think about the kind of adjectives we've learned. We know we've memorized it now. An adjective describes a noun. A noun is a person, place, or a thing, all right? But there's all different kinds of adjectives, and we've been talking about some of those, haven't we? So let's look at, I wrote us a few sentences, and then I want you, we'll look at the sentences together, and let's think about which kind of adjectives do we have going on here, okay? Let's look at this first one. Beautiful unicorns gallop, all right? Beautiful unicorns gallop. We look at that, and the adjective in that sentence is beautiful. What is it describing? It's describing unicorns. But what kind of adjective is this? Beautiful unicorns gallop. Well, this is an adjective that answers the question, what kind? You could just say unicorns gallop, but you might ask yourself, what kind? What kind of unicorns? The answer is beautiful. So which adjective answers the question, what kind, in this sentence? Beautiful. Beautiful is a what kind, answers that question, what kind. Now how about this one? I have 12 Pokemon cards. I have 12 Pokemon cards. Do you know which one is the adjective? Which one in this sentence is the adjective? Well, it's 12. 12 is the adjective, and it is answering the question, how many? I could just say, I have Pokemon cards, but answering the question, how many, put in this adjective. I have 12 Pokemon cards. Sometimes adjectives answer the question, how many? This, let's look at this sentence, says, coffee is yummier than milk. Coffee is yummier than milk. Now, our little clue here, we see this ER. That's an ending that can come on adjectives sometimes when they're comparing more than one noun. Okay, so let's find the nouns in the sentence first. Coffee and milk. They're comparing the two. This sentence compares the two. Coffee is yummier than milk. So sometimes adjectives compare, and they can compare two things. If they're doing two things, they usually use the ER, or if you're comparing three or more and you're having to say like what's the best, in this case you could just say coffee is the yummiest drink. Yummiest of all the drinks, coffee is the yummiest, in my opinion. Okay, so sometimes adjectives compare between more than one noun. How about this last sentence? Let's read it together. Second graders are great students. That's a true sentence. Now, which one is the adjective? It's a what kind adjective, isn't it? What kind of students? They're great students. But sometimes we want to find another adjective, maybe even a more colorful adjective. In which case, let's think of a simile for great. Can we think of something that we could replace with great? Another one, it means almost the same or the exact same, but it's a new word. Well, you can use a thesaurus. I don't know if any of you guys found a thesaurus at your home or had your parents look one up on their device. But here's some other options. We could say second graders are fantastic students. Second graders are excellent students. Second graders are fabulous students. So we are thinking of similes, more adjectives that mean something almost exactly the same or very similar to it. And all of these things are things you're going to do in your homework today. Your homework is a practice page. Let's see what the number is. Practice page 245 and 246 of English. You're going to find what kind, adjectives that answer the question what kind, adjectives that answer the question how many, adjectives that compare, and you're also going to be thinking of some similes, another adjective that means something the same or almost the same. All right? All right, let's look at our spelling for this week. Now remember our spelling list, all of our words that are pattern words follow the pattern of a short vowel sound followed by a double consonant and an LE. And some of it, I always think this is fun when our spelling list includes this. Some of our spelling list words rhyme. I love rhyming words. So if you look at your spelling list, can you find the word that rhymes with dribble in your spelling list? Find one that is in there. Scribble. Both short vowel, double consonant, and ending in an LE. Scribble, dribble. It's a nice sounding rhyme, isn't it? Your spelling paper, your spelling assignment, which is page 99 and page 100, begins with finding rhyming words, okay? For example, they'll give you two, and then you have to find the third rhyming word from your spelling list, okay? So we see this one from list, we're on list 25. Rubble, stubble. What is a word from your spelling list that could rhyme? Rubble, stubble, bubble. All right, so if you're not sure, if you're looking at it and you're not sure, check your spelling list. Don't just think of a rhyming word, think of a rhyming word that comes from your spelling list. The back of your spelling page, page 100, is a proofreading page. It's an example of a letter from a granddaughter to her grandmother. And you're going to read it and you're going to find all of the mistakes. You're going to circle them and then you'll write them correctly underneath. Here's just to practice. Here's a sentence. She needed to find it soon. Let's find the mistake here. Now, I capitalized my sentence because I know a sentence needs capital letter. She needed to find it soon. I put a end mark. Okay, so those parts of the sentence are correct. But do you see any spelling errors? She needed to find it soon. There's the mistake. Okay, so we'll circle the mistake and then we'll write it correctly. Soon. It's 2 S-O-O-N to write the correct spelling underneath. So your proofreading page is going to have you do things like that. Also, when I looked at that letter, it's just a short, simple letter. Dear grandmother, a few chatty things about what's going on. Love, your granddaughter. And it made me think, isn't this a nice time to maybe think of someone you could send a letter to? Maybe a grandparent or an auntie or uncle or just a friend that you've been missing. This is a great time to send a letter. Write one, practice everything we've learned about writing friendly letters, and stick it in the mailbox, okay? I think that could be a really fun activity. For your spelling, I want you to be sure you do these pages 99 to 100 as we work on memorizing spelling list 25. For reading, we're going to read Act 2 of our play. We've been reading the play Little Twigs. We read Act 1. Today we're going to read Act 2. Remember, our main characters are two little beaver cousins, whose names I can't remember right now, but we'll open it in just a moment and see. But before we start reading, let's look at some new vocabulary for today. So be watching for these words in Act 2 as we read it together. fades, oh, I left one letter out of that, snuffled, and swirled. Okay, let me read you a sentence using the vocabulary word and then let's guess what it means. Okay, the sunlight fades in the evening. Do you think fades means brightens or disappears? Fades means disappears. The crying child snuffled loudly. Snuffled. Do you think that means walked or sniffled? It means sniffled. Okay. The water swirled before it went down the bathtub drain. Do you think swirled means spun around, or do you think it means floated? The water swirled before it went down the bathtub drain. I bet some of you have watched the water go down a drain, right? And spin around as it goes down. Swirled. All right. Now, in Act 1, it's the two cousins, Billy and Chester, that's their names. They're playing a game and grandmother stops them. Do you remember what grandmother told them? Do you remember? She said, don't play that game because every twig is important. Each piece in the lodge, if you take them out, they're all holding it together and making a safe home for the beavers, okay? They're all important so that the beaver home does not break. Chester's actions, how do they show that he's not really making good choices and he's not setting a good example? Well, Chester makes fun of Billy. He makes fun of him. He says, oh, your tail's so small. Or he also threatens him when he says, don't tell anybody what we've been doing. And he encourages him to keep playing the game and to disobey what grandmother said. Okay, so and at the end of the play of Act 1, they had gotten one stick out, and as it came out, so did so much water, right? And then they were frantically pushing it back in, right? Let's open together because I want you to be reading this together with me. Page 122 in your reading book. Act 2. Lights turned low. All of the beavers asleep inside the beaver lodge. A roaring sound, like thunder, that starts softly and gets louder as the narrator speaks. That's what you should be imagining while I read, okay? Narrator. That night, Billy woke to a terrible sound. It was louder than any thunder he had ever heard. It was a roar. It grew louder. Billy's father rushed through the lodge. Billy's father, hurry, hurry, get out, get out. Now the roaring sound fades so that it is quiet by the time Billy's mother speaks. Narrator. In the dark, Billy's mother found him and pulled him with her into the pond. In a moment, they were on the bank. Billy's mother. It's all right. We are all here. We are all safe. Lights are bright. Sticks are floating on the pond where the lodge has been. Narrator. But when the sun came up, things did not look all right. The beaver's lodge was a ruined pile of sticks. The stream swirled over and through it. The dam was gone and there was no more pond. Billy's father and grandfather went out into the stream and moved a few logs. Grandfather. We will have to start over. Narrator. Billy stole a look at his cousin. Chester whispered back at him. Chester. Don't say a word. Not if you know what's good for you. Narrator. All day, Billy watched his father and grandfather pulling sticks and logs from the rubble. His heart felt heavier and heavier. By sundown, Billy's heart was so heavy he could hardly breathe. When his father came down to the bank that evening, Billy threw himself down by his father's side and he cried. Billy, I have done a terrible, terrible thing. Narrator. Billy told his father how he and Chester had pulled sticks from the dam. He told how they had gone on pulling sticks, even after grandmother had asked them to stop. Billy, we've ruined the lodge. We did it, Papa. Narrator. Billy's father picked him up. Billy's father. It was wrong for you to not listen to grandmother. Narrator. The little beaver snuffled and took a deep breath. Billy's father. But you did not make the dam wash away. A flood from upstream came through, and when that happens, there's nothing that will save a dam or a lodge. Billy. I didn't do it? Oh, Papa. Narrator. Then Billy cried again. He was thankful that he had chosen to do what was right. He had told his father the truth. His father kissed Billy and put him to bed on a nest of leaves. Billy slept peacefully all night. Cousin Chester went to bed that night too, but he did not sleep peacefully. He stayed awake all night, moaning and tossing. Chester tossing in bed. Narrator. Chester knew that telling the truth was the right thing to do, but he chose not to do it. Chester did not make the right choice. Okay. Can you imagine how that feels? It's just a made-up story, but I think they describe it really well. The feeling of, knowing you did something wrong, but you have to be brave to admit it, or the feeling that Chester has of he knows he has something and he's keeping it a secret, and it's like it hurts in his head and his heart. He can't sleep. Okay, let's look at the questions over on the next page. Are the little twigs in the play important? Yes, they are, right? When the very first story, grandmother says each little twig is important to the home of the beavers. Every piece of wood is important to making it strong. So that's it's like a picture in a story and a picture with words to make us think about other things that are small, but they're important. Think about things that they happen in our own houses, right? And we're all home in our own houses all the time now. Little things matter. If you leave toys on the stairs, that's just little toys, but someone could fall, right? If you, those small choices you make about how you treat your siblings or other people in your home have big implications for how your whole day goes sometimes, right? The small choices you make from the moment you wake up in the morning, whether you're going to speak nicely to each other or come out all grumpy to start your day. Small things can have big results in your day, right? Now, I think it's an important lesson that Billy learned, that the small choice he was making to pull out tiny sticks, it seemed like it didn't matter. It did have a big impact. But what had an even bigger impact is how he felt when he was being dishonest and not telling what he had done, and then what relief he felt once he had been honest with his dad, right? So I like that. It's an interesting play, and it's a good thing for us to think about, that small choices we make really matter, okay? We have a worksheet today. We're going to do page 311 and 312. And I want you to work on that. It's comprehension of the play that we read and a little bit of work on your phonics. And I know you're going to do a great job.